Before you scroll away, ask yourself one question. Why has your spirit felt so unsettled lately, even when nothing around you seems completely wrong? Something about these past few weeks has felt different, and deep down you know it. Maybe you tried to explain it away as stress, exhaustion, or another long night staring at the ceiling at 2:43 in the morning while the rest of the world slept peacefully. But this feeling goes deeper than that. It follows you into quiet rooms. It sits with you during long drives. It lingers in the silence after everyone else stops texting back. And no matter how hard you try to distract yourself with work, television, noise, or endless scrolling, the feeling keeps returning like a quiet warning you cannot fully understand. You have smiled around people while carrying a heaviness no one noticed. You have told others you were fine because explaining the truth felt impossible. How do you describe the strange emptiness of feeling emotionally exhausted while your life still looks normal from the outside? How do you explain the pressure in your chest that appears out of nowhere when the room gets quiet? Lately, it feels like something inside you has been trying to wake you up, but every time you get close to understanding it, life pulls your attention somewhere else. And the strange part is this did not begin after one major event. It happened slowly, one closed door at a time, one delayed answer at a time, one disappointment after another, until eventually you stopped expecting anything good to happen quickly. You started telling yourself maybe this is just how life works now. Maybe silence means you are forgotten. Maybe the opportunities that disappeared were simply not meant for someone like you. But there is a reason your soul has refused to fully accept that explanation. There is a reason you still feel this quiet pull in moments nobody else sees. A man sat alone in his apartment parking lot 3 nights ago, long after turning off the engine of his car, because going upstairs felt heavier than staying in silence. A woman stared at her phone after midnight, rereading a message she never sent, because something inside her told her to wait. One more day? Someone else almost accepted an offer that looked perfect on paper, only for everything to suddenly collapse at the last minute. At first it felt cruel, embarrassing even. But what if those moments were not random? What if the frustration you feel right now is connected to something you cannot fully see yet? Because sometimes the hardest thing to accept is that not every delay is punishment. Not every silence is abandonment. And not every closed door is rejection. Sometimes your life becomes quiet because something bigger is shifting underneath the surface before you are ready to understand it. And tonight, whether you realize it or not, you may already be standing in the middle of that shift. You have been trying to convince yourself that everything will make sense if you just work harder, stay busier, or stop thinking so much. But lately, even the things that once distracted you have started feeling empty. The television plays in the background while your mind drifts somewhere else. You scroll through your phone for an hour and somehow end up feeling even more disconnected than before. The strange part is that nobody around you seems to notice the shift happening inside you. At work, you still answer emails. You still smile at people in grocery store lines. You still say things like, "I am just tired," whenever someone asks how you are doing. But deep down, you know this feeling is not ordinary exhaustion. Something inside you has become unusually sensitive lately. Small things affect you more deeply than they used to. Certain conversations linger in your mind for hours. Certain places suddenly feel wrong even when they once felt familiar. And there are moments when your chest tightens for no clear reason at all, especially late at night, when the world finally becomes quiet enough for your thoughts to catch up with you. A few nights ago, you almost sent a message to someone you missed deeply. You stared at the screen with your thumb hovering over the send button, while memories replayed in your mind like scenes from another life. Part of you wanted comfort, part of you wanted closure. But something stopped you. Not fear exactly, more like an unexplainable hesitation you could not shake. So you set the phone down beside you and sat there in silence, listening to the hum of the air conditioner and the distant sound of traffic outside your apartment window. At the time, it felt frustrating. You wondered why even simple decisions suddenly felt emotionally heavy. But that same night, without looking for it, you came across something that changed the way you saw everything. Not a dramatic sign, not a loud voice, just a quiet discovery that revealed truths you were never supposed to see too late. And suddenly the hesitation made sense. The delay protected you from reopening a door that would have pulled you back into confusion all over again. That is what has been unsettling you lately. Deep down, your spirit has started recognizing things your mind is still trying to deny. You are beginning to outgrow places, people, and patterns that once felt impossible to let go of. And the process does not feel peaceful at first. It feels lonely. It feels disorienting. Sometimes it even feels unfair. Because while everyone else seems to move forward normally, you feel stuck standing in the middle of an invisible transition nobody else can see. Yet the strange interruptions keep happening. Plans change unexpectedly. Certain people slowly drift away. Opportunities that looked perfect suddenly fall apart at the last second. And every time it happens, you wonder if life is working against you when in reality something deeper may be pulling you away from what no longer belongs in your future. The hardest part has been trying to explain to yourself why everything that once felt certain now feels strangely unstable. It is not only relationships or opportunities. It is the way your entire life has started feeling slightly out of rhythm, like a song missing one quiet note that only you can hear. You walk through familiar places and suddenly feel disconnected from them. Restaurants you used to enjoy feel emotionally flat. Conversations drain you faster than before. Even laughter sometimes feels distant, as if part of you is somewhere else entirely. And no matter how much sleep you get, there is still this deep tiredness sitting underneath everything. Not physical exhaustion alone, but something heavier, something spiritual. Last Thursday evening, while driving home after work, traffic on the interstate came to a complete stop for nearly 40 minutes. At first you felt irritated because you were already emotionally drained and just wanted to get home, lock the door, and disappear from the world for the night. You remember gripping the steering wheel while headlights stretched endlessly ahead of you, glowing red against the dark pavement. Normally, you would have taken the next exit to save time, but something told you not to move. You stayed exactly where you were even though it made no logical sense. 20 minutes later, you learned there had been a major accident on the route you almost took instead. The realization left you sitting in silence with chills running through your arms because deep down it felt like more than coincidence. And suddenly you began replaying other moments in your life that now seemed strangely connected. The interview you desperately wanted but never received a call back from. The friendship that slowly faded without explanation. The apartment you almost signed for before unexpected paperwork problems stopped everything at the last minute. At the time, each disappointment felt personal. You questioned your worth. You wondered what was wrong with you. You compared your life to everyone else around you who seemed to move forward so easily, while your own path kept stalling unexpectedly. But lately a quiet thought has started forming inside you, one you have been almost afraid to admit out loud. What if some of the things that fell apart were never meant to survive in your life long term? What if your frustration has been growing because part of you senses that you are being redirected while the other part still wants answers immediately? That inner conflict is exhausting. One side of you wants control, certainty, and clear explanations. The other side keeps noticing subtle patterns that logic alone cannot fully explain. Why do certain warnings arrive right before major decisions? Why do some delays end up protecting you from things you later realize would have wounded your peace? And why does your spirit suddenly feel alert now in ways it never did before? You may not fully understand it yet, but your sensitivity is increasing for a reason. The quiet discomfort you feel is not there to destroy you. It is there to wake you up before you walk too far in the wrong direction again. And somewhere deep inside, beneath the confusion and emotional exhaustion, you already know that something unseen has been trying to guide you long before this moment ever arrived. There are moments now when you almost do not recognize yourself anymore, and that realization has been quietly unsettling you in ways you rarely admit to anyone. Not because you have become weaker, but because the things that once comforted you no longer reach you the same way. You used to tolerate situations that drained your energy without thinking twice. You used to chase approval, answers, and reassurance from people who barely noticed the weight you carried. But lately something inside you pulls back the moment your peace feels disturbed, almost like your spirit has started protecting itself before your mind fully understands why. That change did not happen overnight. It grew slowly through disappointment after disappointment until your heart became exhausted from pretending everything was fine. One evening this past week, you sat at your kitchen counter long after dinner had gone cold beside you. The apartment was completely silent except for the sound of rain tapping softly against the windows. Your phone lit up with a message from someone you once would have dropped everything for. Months ago, that message would have filled you with hope. You would have overanalyzed every word, searching for signs that things were finally changing. But this time something felt different. Instead of excitement, you felt heaviness. Not fear exactly, but a quiet awareness deep in your chest warning you not to step backward into something your soul had already outgrown. And even though part of you felt lonely enough to respond immediately, another part stayed still. You stared at the message for several minutes before placing the phone face down beside the sink and walking away. That moment stayed with you because it revealed something important. You are beginning to notice the difference between emotional craving and genuine peace. For a long time, loneliness made certain connections feel sacred simply because they temporarily filled empty spaces inside you. But now the emptiness itself is changing. It no longer wants noise for comfort. It wants clarity. And clarity can feel painful before it feels freeing because it forces you to see what your emotions once tried to protect you from. That is why the silence around your life has become louder recently. It is not empty silence. It is revealing silence. The kind that exposes patterns you ignored when life was busier and distractions were easier to reach. You are starting to see how many times you chased things that only deepened your confusion afterward. How many times your intuition warned you quietly while your emotions rushed ahead anyway. And perhaps the most difficult realization of all is understanding that some of the things you lost were never aligned with the peace you have been searching for. Deep down you already know this. That is why certain memories suddenly feel heavier than before. That is why your spirit becomes restless in places where you once felt attached. Something inside you is waking up to truths that cannot be unseen once recognized. The process feels isolating because growth often begins long before visible change arrives. Right now you are standing in the uncomfortable middle between who you used to be and who you are slowly becoming. And while the outside world may still look ordinary, something beneath the surface of your life has already started shifting in ways you cannot fully explain yet. The deeper this season goes, the harder it has become to ignore the feeling that your life is being quietly interrupted from a direction you cannot fully explain. It no longer feels like coincidence when plans suddenly change at the last minute or when your spirit reacts strongly to situations that once seemed harmless. Something inside you has become alert in a way that feels both uncomfortable and strangely necessary. You notice it most during the quiet hours after midnight, when the distractions finally fade and your thoughts become impossible to outrun. Those are the moments when memories rise to the surface without warning. Regrets you thought you buried years ago. Conversations you wish had ended differently. People you trusted who slowly disappeared once life became difficult. And somewhere in the middle of those thoughts, another realization keeps returning no matter how hard you push it away. You have been carrying emotional exhaustion for much longer than you admitted to yourself. Not because you are weak, but because you kept trying to survive situations your spirit was never meant to settle inside permanently. Last Sunday morning, you almost drove 2 hours to reconnect with someone who once held a powerful place in your life. You spent nearly an hour getting ready, convincing yourself this meeting might finally bring clarity or healing to everything that still felt unresolved. But from the moment you woke up that day, nothing flowed naturally. Your coffee spilled across the kitchen counter before you could even leave the apartment. Traffic reports warned about unexpected delays. Your chest felt tight every time you picked up your car keys. Even the weather shifted strangely, with dark clouds rolling in despite a clear forecast the night before. Part of you became frustrated because it felt like the universe itself was resisting your plans. Eventually, you sat in your parked car staring through the windshield while rain tapped softly against the glass. And for the first time, you stopped asking why things felt blocked and started asking what if the resistance itself was the answer. That question changed something inside you. Because deep down, you already knew what returning to that connection would have cost you emotionally. You knew how many sleepless nights followed every moment of temporary comfort. You knew how quickly hope turned into confusion whenever you ignored the quiet warnings inside yourself. Yet loneliness has a way of making familiar pain feel safer than uncertain peace. That is the internal battle exhausting you now. Part of you still wants immediate relief from the emptiness, while another part has started recognizing that not everything familiar is healthy for your future. And the more this awareness grows, the more isolated you sometimes feel from the people around you. They do not understand why your energy has changed. They cannot see the emotional weight you carry while pretending to function normally every day. But something important is happening underneath the confusion. Your sensitivity is becoming sharper because your spirit is no longer willing to ignore what your heart used to tolerate. The delays are becoming louder. The discomfort is becoming clearer. And somewhere beneath the loneliness, beneath the waiting, beneath all the unanswered questions, a quiet realization is beginning to form inside you that some of the things you lost may have been removed before they could quietly destroy your peace completely. You are beginning to notice that the moments which disturb you the most are not always dramatic moments. Sometimes it is something small and almost impossible to explain to another person. A sudden heaviness when you walk into a certain room. An uncomfortable feeling while talking to someone who appears perfectly kind on the surface. A deep exhaustion after spending time in environments that once energized you. It feels as though your spirit has become more awake than your mind knows how to handle yet. And that awareness is changing the way you move through the world. The strange part is that nobody else can fully see this battle happening inside you. From the outside, your life still looks ordinary. You still go to work. You still answer calls. You still laugh at the right moments during conversations. But privately, something deeper has shifted. You no longer feel emotionally safe pretending everything is fine. Even silence feels different now. It no longer feels empty. It feels like pressure building beneath the surface of your life before something changes completely. A few nights ago, you woke suddenly at 3:11 in the morning without knowing why. The apartment was dark except for the faint glow from the microwave clock in the kitchen. Your heart was racing even though there was no obvious reason for it. You tried to go back to sleep, but something kept pulling your thoughts toward the same question over and over again. Why have so many things been falling apart lately, right when you thought they were finally coming together? You thought about the opportunities that disappeared unexpectedly, the people who slowly became distant, the plans that collapsed after you invested so much emotional energy into them. And for a moment, frustration washed over you again, because part of you still wanted an explanation that made immediate sense. But then another memory surfaced quietly in your mind. You remembered how many times your intuition tried to warn you before certain situations eventually hurt you. You remembered conversations where your chest tightened even while you smiled politely. You remembered forcing yourself to stay connected to people long after your peace had already started fading around them. And suddenly the pattern became harder to ignore. Maybe your spirit recognized danger long before your emotions were ready to let go. That realization unsettled you because it meant some of the delays in your life were not random interruptions at all. They were protection arriving in forms you misunderstood at the time. You called it rejection because you could not yet see what you were being spared from. You called it silence because the answers did not arrive on your timeline. But perhaps something deeper was happening beneath every uncomfortable pause. Perhaps your life has been slowing down because you were moving towards situations that would have quietly drained the very peace you have been praying to find. And now the tension inside you is growing because part of your soul already senses change approaching while the rest of you is still grieving the version of life you thought you wanted. That is why this season feels so emotionally confusing. You are not only losing old attachments, you are losing old illusions. And even though the process feels lonely at times, something inside you is becoming clearer with every delay, every interruption, and every moment of uncomfortable silence you can no longer ignore. The pressure inside you has become impossible to hide from yourself now. Even on the days when you try to act normal, there is still this constant tension underneath everything, like your soul is carrying information your mind has not fully accepted yet. You feel it while standing in line at the grocery store watching strangers move through ordinary conversations as if life still feels simple for them. You feel it while sitting in your car after work, staring at the dashboard longer than necessary before turning the key and going home. And you feel it most during the quiet moments when there is nothing left to distract you from the truth that something inside your life is changing faster than you expected. What makes this season so difficult is that the changes are not always visible from the outside. There was no dramatic ending, no loud collapse. Most things faded slowly. A connection became colder one conversation at a time. Motivation disappeared little by little. The dreams that once excited you now leave you emotionally tired before you even begin pursuing them. And somewhere along the way, you started questioning yourself more than ever before. You wondered if maybe you were becoming too sensitive, too distant, too emotional. But deep down, another part of you knows this is not weakness. It is awareness. A man sat alone inside a 24-hour diner 2 nights ago long after finishing his coffee because he could not bring himself to return to the empty apartment waiting for him across town. The waitress refilled his cup twice, while soft music played from old ceiling speakers and neon lights flickered against the rain outside the windows. Around him, people laughed quietly, scrolling through their phones or talking about ordinary things. But inside, he felt completely disconnected from everything around him. He kept replaying the same thought in his head. Why does it feel like my entire life is pausing while everyone else keeps moving forward? And maybe you have asked yourself that same question recently. Maybe you have stared at the ceiling at 1 a.m, wondering why the more you try to force clarity, the more confused everything becomes. Because this season has not only tested your patience, it has tested your trust in your own instincts. Every delay feels personal now. Every unanswered message feels heavier. Every closed door awakens old fears of rejection you thought you had already healed from. Yet despite all of that, something inside you still refuses to fully give up. And that is important, because even while you feel emotionally exhausted, your spirit keeps noticing things your fear wants to ignore. You are beginning to recognize that some of the situations leaving your life were already draining your peace long before they disappeared completely. You are starting to see how many times discomfort arrived before disappointment ever did. The signs were there. The tension was there. The quiet warnings were there. But loneliness kept convincing you to stay connected to things your spirit had already begun pulling away from. That is why this season feels so intense emotionally. You are no longer asleep to what your soul has been trying to tell you. And once awareness begins, pretending no longer feels possible. Something is being separated in your life right now. Not to punish you, but to prevent you from building your future around people, places, and patterns that would have slowly broken your peace from the inside out. What if the very things that broke your heart were the same things quietly saving your future? That thought has probably crossed your mind more than once lately, especially during those strange moments when pieces of your past suddenly begin making sense in ways they never did before. It is unsettling when clarity arrives after pain instead of before it. You spend months grieving something, blaming yourself, questioning your worth, only to eventually realize the situation was unstable long before it collapsed. But when you are emotionally attached to something, you rarely see it clearly while you are inside it. That is why this season has felt so confusing. Your emotions kept trying to hold on to things your spirit was already warning you about. And now the distance between those two parts of yourself has become impossible to ignore. Earlier this week, you found yourself scrolling through old messages late at night, reading conversations from a version of your life that once felt permanent. At first, nostalgia hit you hard. You remembered the excitement, the hope, the comfort of believing certain people would always remain close to you. But the more you read, the more something unexpected happened. You started noticing patterns you completely missed back then. The moments when your needs were ignored. The subtle ways your peace disappeared every time conflict entered the room. The exhaustion you normalized because you wanted the connection to survive so badly. And suddenly your memories stopped feeling like loss and started feeling like release. That realization sat heavily in your chest because it forced you to confront a truth you were never emotionally ready to accept before now. Some of the things you begged to keep in your life would have slowly destroyed your peace if they had stayed. The delayed answer protected you. The closed door protected you. The silence protected you. Even the moments that felt cruel at the time may have been interruptions designed to stop you from walking deeper into situations your spirit already sensed were unhealthy. That is the twist you are beginning to understand now. You were never being abandoned the way you thought you were. You were being redirected away from paths that looked comforting on the surface but carried hidden exhaustion underneath them. And perhaps that explains why your intuition became louder right before certain endings happened. Why your body felt tense around certain people even while your mind kept making excuses for them. Why you felt emotionally drained after conversations that appeared harmless to everyone else. Deep down, your spirit recognized things before your heart could emotionally process them. That awareness is what has been waking up inside you during this difficult season. It is not there to make you fearful. It is there to make you honest with yourself. Honest about how much pain you tolerated simply because you were afraid of being alone. Honest about how many times you chased clarity from people who were already emotionally distant. Honest about how often you ignored your own inner warnings because temporary comfort felt safer than uncertainty. But now something inside you is changing permanently. You are beginning to understand that peace and attachment are not always the same thing. And the things falling away from your life right now may not be signs that you are losing your path. They may be signs that your path is finally becoming clear enough for you to stop walking toward what was never truly meant to stay. The more you begin seeing your past clearly, the more emotionally overwhelming this season becomes, because clarity does not always arrive gently. Sometimes it arrives all at once in the middle of an ordinary moment and suddenly changes the meaning of everything you once grieved. You thought you were mourning lost opportunities, but now you are starting to realize you may have actually been mourning the version of life you expected to happen rather than the life that was truly right for you. That realization can feel deeply unsettling at first because it forces you to confront how many times you confused attachment with destiny. A woman sat quietly on the floor of her apartment last night, surrounded by half-packed moving boxes after unexpectedly losing the lease renewal she had counted on for months. At first she cried because the situation felt unfair and unstable. She kept asking herself why everything seemed to collapse right when she finally started feeling secure again. But while sorting through old paperwork, she found documents connected to a period of her life she barely survived emotionally. Suddenly memories returned of the exhaustion she normalized during those years. The anxiety, the loneliness, the constant feeling of surviving instead of living. And for the first time, the apartment no longer felt like safety. It felt like a place she had outgrown long ago. That is what has been happening beneath the surface of your own life too. Things are not only ending, illusions are ending. The illusion that certain people would eventually become who you needed them to be. The illusion that forcing closed doors open would finally bring peace. The illusion that silence always means abandonment instead of preparation. You have spent so much time interpreting delays as proof that something was wrong with you, when in reality some of those delays were the very things preventing you from building your future around emotional instability. Think about how many times your intuition whispered quietly before a disappointment arrived. Think about how many nights your chest felt heavy before certain conversations changed everything. Your spirit noticed the instability long before your emotions were willing to accept it. That is why this season has felt so emotionally intense. You are not simply healing from pain. You are awakening to truth. And truth changes the way you remember everything. Suddenly moments that once felt cruel begin looking different. The unanswered prayer, the canceled plan, the person who slowly disappeared from your life without explanation. What if those moments were not punishment at all? What if they were interruptions meant to protect your peace before deeper damage could settle into your future? That possibility changes everything because it means your life may not have been falling apart the way you feared. It may have been separating you from paths that looked emotionally familiar but carried hidden exhaustion beneath them. And perhaps that explains why you have felt so internally conflicted lately. One part of you still grieves what you lost, while another part quietly senses that losing it may have saved you from years of emotional confusion later on. That tension is exhausting because transformation rarely feels peaceful in the beginning. It feels lonely. It feels uncertain. It feels like standing in the middle of a life that no longer fits while the next chapter has not fully revealed itself yet. But beneath all the discomfort, something deeper is happening. Your spirit is learning the difference between what feels emotionally addictive and what actually brings lasting peace. And once you begin recognizing that difference, there is no returning to the version of yourself who ignored the warnings just to avoid feeling alone. The strange thing about awakening to truth is that once you begin seeing clearly, you cannot return to the comfort of old illusions no matter how badly part of you wants to. That is why this season is felt emotionally heavier instead of lighter at times. You are no longer grieving only what you lost. You are grieving how long you ignored yourself while trying to hold everything together. There is a quiet sadness that comes with realizing how many times your spirit tried to protect you while your emotions kept asking for one more chance, one more sign, one more conversation that would finally make everything feel safe again. But now something inside you has started changing permanently. You can feel it in the way certain environments suddenly drain you within minutes. You can feel it in the way your body reacts before your mind fully understands why. And perhaps most importantly, you can feel it in the silence itself. Because the silence no longer feels empty the way it once did. It feels intentional. Last night you drove through your old neighborhood after not visiting for several months. The streets looked exactly the same at first. The same gas station on the corner. The same dim porch lights glowing across familiar apartment buildings. The same diner where you once spent hours trying to escape loneliness over late-night coffee. But something inside you felt completely different while driving those roads again. Instead of nostalgia, there was distance. Not coldness, not bitterness, just awareness. You realized that the version of yourself who once moved through those streets was carrying emotional burdens you no longer want to carry into your future. You remembered the nights you sat awake replaying conversations in your head. The mornings when anxiety greeted you before your feet even touched the floor. The constant emotional hunger for reassurance from people who rarely gave it consistently. And suddenly you understood something that changed everything. You were not being denied peace during those years. You were searching for peace in places that could never truly hold it. That realization landed softly but deeply inside you because it exposed the true meaning behind so many delays and interruptions you once resented. The closed doors were not there to hurt you. They were there to stop you from continuing patterns that slowly emptied you emotionally. The silence was not there to abandon you. It was there to separate your real needs from your emotional cravings. And the discomfort you feel now is not proof that you are lost. It is proof that your awareness has outgrown the life you once settled for. That is why your intuition has become louder lately. You are finally beginning to trust the quiet signals you used to ignore. The heaviness before certain decisions. The uneasiness around certain people. The exhaustion that follows situations your spirit no longer aligns with. Those feelings are not random. They are part of the deeper clarity unfolding inside you now. And although this transformation feels lonely at times, something sacred is happening beneath the surface of your ordinary life. You are learning that peace is not found by forcing doors open or chasing people who repeatedly create confusion inside you. Real peace begins when you finally stop betraying your own spirit just to avoid the discomfort of change. And perhaps that is why this season became so quiet around you. Not because you were forgotten, but because something unseen needed your attention before your future could fully open in front of you. You are not the same person who entered this season, even if the outside world has not fully noticed the difference yet. Something inside you has become quieter, but also stronger. Not stronger in the loud way people usually imagine strength, but stronger in the way a person becomes after surviving emotional exhaustion they once thought would break them completely. You no longer chase every explanation the way you used to. You no longer force yourself to remain connected to situations that repeatedly steal your peace. And although the loneliness still visits you sometimes, there is another feeling slowly growing underneath it now. Discernment. The ability to recognize what drains your spirit before you lose yourself trying to fix it. That change did not happen easily. It came through long nights of silence when you felt emotionally invisible. It came through disappointments that forced you to sit alone with truths you spent years avoiding. And perhaps most painfully, it came through realizing how often you abandoned yourself while trying to keep other people comfortable. Earlier today, you passed a small bookstore you used to visit during one of the hardest periods of your life. Without thinking, you parked and walked inside. The smell of old pages and coffee instantly brought back memories of afternoons spent sitting quietly near the windows pretending you were fine while your mind carried more weight than anyone realized. Back then you used to pray for immediate change, immediate answers, immediate relief from the uncertainty that followed you everywhere. But standing there now, something felt different. You realized the person who once sat in that bookstore was desperately searching for signs that life would stop hurting. While the person you are becoming now is finally learning how to stop abandoning inner peace just to avoid temporary loneliness. That realization almost brought tears to your eyes because it revealed how much you have actually changed beneath the surface. You may still feel uncertain about the future sometimes, but you no longer crave the same things that once controlled your emotions completely. The need for constant reassurance has weakened. The desire to force broken connections back together has faded. Even your understanding of silence has changed. What once felt like emptiness now feels more like space being cleared inside your life for something healthier to eventually arrive. That is why certain people no longer feel aligned with your spirit the way they once did. It is not because you hate them. It is because your awareness has deepened beyond the version of yourself that accepted confusion as normal. And although growth can feel isolating, there is something beautiful about finally seeing clearly after years of emotional fog. You begin noticing how many times your intuition quietly protected you while your fears begged you to settle. You begin understanding why certain delays happened exactly when they did. You begin recognizing that not every ending was loss. Some endings were rescue in disguise. That truth changes the way you carry your past now. Instead of viewing every disappointment as evidence that you were unwanted, you are starting to see how many painful moments redirected your life away from hidden exhaustion you were never meant to carry forever. And while you still do not know exactly where this new path leads, one thing inside you has become undeniable. The version of yourself who ignored every warning just to feel temporarily loved is slowly disappearing. In its place, something steadier is beginning to emerge. Something inside you has finally started becoming still, and that stillness feels unfamiliar because for so long your inner world survived on emotional noise. You became used to overthinking every delay, every silence, every shift in another person's energy. You became used to carrying tension in your chest as though it belonged there permanently. But lately there have been small moments, quiet moments, where peace has appeared unexpectedly without needing anyone else to create it for you. At first those moments felt almost strange. You did not trust them completely. A calm drive home at sunset. A quiet morning before your phone started buzzing. A deep breath taken without the usual pressure sitting underneath it. These moments seem ordinary to other people, but to you they feel significant because they reveal how much emotional weight you have been carrying for years without realizing it. Last night you sat near the window while rain moved softly against the glass again, but this time the silence around you felt different. Not heavy, not threatening, just quiet. You looked around your apartment and noticed how many things had changed emotionally without anything dramatic happening physically. The same furniture remained. The same walls surrounded you. Yet your spirit no longer felt trapped inside the life you once feared would never improve. For the first time in a long while, you stopped replaying old conversations in your head searching for hidden meaning. You stopped wondering whether certain people would finally return and become who you needed them to be. You simply sat there listening to the storm outside and realized something important. The constant emotional urgency inside you had finally started fading. That realization brought an unexpected sadness at. First, because it made you aware of how much of your life had been spent chasing reassurance from unstable places. But beneath that sadness, there was also relief. Deep relief. The kind that arrives quietly after surviving a season that changed you from the inside out. You are beginning to understand now that peace was never going to come from forcing the right people to stay or convincing closed doors to reopen. Peace arrived the moment your spirit stopped resisting what it had been trying to tell you all along. That is why your life feels quieter now. Not because nothing meaningful is happening, but because the internal battle between your intuition and your emotional attachments is finally starting to settle. You are no longer fighting yourself the way you used to. And perhaps that is the deeper meaning behind everything that happened. The delays taught you patience. The silence taught you discernment. The disappointments taught you the difference between temporary comfort and genuine alignment. Even the loneliness carried purpose because it forced you to reconnect with parts of yourself you abandoned while chasing validation from the outside world. Looking back now, you can see how many times unseen protection arrived disguised as inconvenience. How many painful interruptions quietly redirected your future before greater emotional damage could unfold. And although you still do not have every answer about where your life is heading next, something inside you finally trusts the process more than it fears the unknown. That trust feels small right now, almost fragile, but it is real. And after everything you have carried through this season, that quiet inner peace may be the clearest sign, yet that you were never as abandoned as you once believed. Tonight the world around you may still look ordinary, but you are no longer the same person who first entered this difficult season. The silence that once terrified you no longer carries the same weight, because somewhere along the way you stopped interpreting every delay as rejection and every closed door as failure. You began noticing how many painful moments quietly redirected your life before deeper damage could reach you. And even though some questions still remain unanswered, Your spirit no longer feels desperate for immediate explanations the way it once did. There is a different kind of strength growing inside you now. Softer than before, but more real. A strength built not from control, but from awareness. Earlier this evening, you stepped outside just before sunset and noticed how calm everything suddenly felt. The air carried that familiar coolness that arrives after a long day. And for a moment, the noise inside your mind became completely still. Cars passed in the distance. Someone walked their dog across the street. The sky shifted slowly from gold into deep blue while porch lights flickered on one by one around the neighborhood. Nothing dramatic happened in that moment. Yet something inside you quietly understood that you survived a version of yourself you thought would never heal. You survived the confusion, the waiting, the sleepless nights spent wondering why life felt so emotionally heavy. You survived the heartbreak of watching things fall apart before you understood why they needed to end. And now, standing in this quieter version of yourself, you can finally see how much unseen protection surrounded moments you once called disappointment. The relationship that collapsed before it could wound you more deeply. The opportunity that disappeared before it could drain years from your peace. The unanswered prayer that eventually revealed a better direction you could not recognize at the time. Looking back now, the pattern feels impossible to ignore. Every interruption carried meaning. Every delay carried redirection. Every uncomfortable silence carried preparation. That does not mean the pain was easy. It was not. There were nights when loneliness wrapped around you so heavily that even hope felt distant. There were moments when you questioned your worth because life refused to move according to your plans. But even during those seasons, something unseen kept gently pulling you away from paths your spirit was never meant to remain trapped inside forever. And perhaps that is the quiet truth settling into your heart now. You were never abandoned in the silence. You were being guided through it one unseen step at a time. Not always in ways you understood immediately, but in ways that slowly protected your future while your emotions struggled to let go of the familiar. That realization changes the way you carry your story now. Instead of seeing yourself as someone forgotten, you begin seeing yourself as someone awakened. Someone who learned how to recognize peace instead of chasing confusion disguised as love. Someone who finally understands that delays are not always denial and silence is not always absence. Sometimes the quietest seasons of your life are the ones shaping you most deeply before everything finally begins to make sense.